personal conviction that constantly bubble just below the surface of a world built by human hands. We honor complexity at the same time we keep things understandable. Do join me. We'll have a lot of fun together.
Weekdays at 5:45 on KSJE. KSJE is supported by San Juan Regional Medical Center, which is officially baby-friendly. This evidence-based initiative is designed to support mother-baby bonding and optimal infant feeding practices by upholding the 10 steps to successful breastfeeding. San Juan Regional Medical Center, officially baby-friendly, and serving the Four Corners since 1910. Find out more online at sanjuanregional.com. Ten minutes past 8 o'clock. It's Tuesday morning, September 24th. Good morning, everyone. I'm Scott Micklin, and thanks for tuning in to KSJE 90.9 FM here in San Juan County, 103.3 FM in the Durango area, and of course you can listen anywhere at KSJE.com. Special good morning also to our viewers who are joining us live this morning on the KSJE Facebook page and YouTube channel. We're glad you're with us, everybody. Coming up in just a moment, my guest today, Dr. Kim Mizell, is here from the Bloomfield School District. I'll be talking with her in just another couple of moments, so stay right where you are. Later on this hour, we'll also be checking in with our friends at the Farmington Civic Center. They'll be joining us from the stage of the Civic Center, talking about their first performance with the Four Corners Theater Troupe. That's coming up later on today, about 8:35 on KSJE. And of course, it's Tuesday, and that's when we check in with the Farmington Regional Animal Shelter and show you some of the pets available for adoption this week. So lots going on this hour, so we've got a lot for you, so stay right there. Next hour, of course, Mick Hess will be here roving with the yards. Classical music for you from Villalobos. That's coming up today at 9:06 on KSJE. And a reminder, of course, to connect with us on social media, our Facebook page, our YouTube channel. Follow us on Twitter, of course, or check out KSJE on Instagram. And before I get to my interview, our weather forecast, morning fog this morning. It is a little soupy out there. That should burn off as the day progresses, and we could see a partly sunny day today with a high of 76 degrees, 47 for an overnight low tonight, warmer tomorrow and Thursday with a high of 81, 78 in sunshine on Friday, and 79 with sunny skies on Saturday. So let me turn to my guest who is here with me this morning, back for her regular visit with me, which I so appreciate her time. Dr. Kim Mizell is here from the Bloomfield School District. Dr. Mizell, good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you for being here this morning.
Thank you for having me.
Your school year off to a good start, you were telling me?
We're doing all right, yeah. We're off to a good start, and things are well on their way. I think we're starting our common interim assessments this week, so we're starting to test already.
All right. Well, I guess that's what you need to do, I guess, to make sure your students
we're testing, the standards that have been taught.
Learning what they're supposed to be learning, right? And you were telling me earlier, too, that you got some fairly pleasing enrollment numbers after the holiday, correct?
Yes. Our enrollment stayed steady, so that's always a good thing, and we didn't have a decline, so we're celebrating that and moving forward. So you have to start looking at your staffing and everything if you have a reduction in students, because the unit value impacts your funding. So
right,
that's why we do that.
And so what you're saying is that your numbers are where they were at the end of the school year in May, basically.
That's
is that
correct.
In Bloomfield Schools?
Yes.
And this is after a few years, I think, of declines. Isn't that true?
Yes, over the last 3 years, we've kind of had a decline each year, and it seems like it's kind of stabilized now. So we're pleased for that
right.
result.
And I guess that helps then for planning and budget planning and things like that for at least the foreseeable future, if there's not any big changes.
It does. It helps a lot with the 40th and the 80, 90, and the 120-day counts. Those are what the state gauges for your funding. And sometimes, you have to give money back because your unit value or the number of students you have didn't stay the same.
Right.
So we're just happy that we're staying stable.
Okay. Well, very good. And let me ask you a couple things, too, about what's going on this year at Bloomfield Schools. One of the things you were telling me is that you're starting a new program about social and emotional learning. And so talk to us a little bit about that. This is in your high school.
Yes. Well, first of all, we kicked it off with the entire staff in our district. With all teachers, we did a whole week of training with everyone. And it's basically re-infusing the idea of establishing a relationship with students and helping to get to know who you're working with, and doing a little better job with that. We found that our students sometimes struggle with coping skills and struggle with interaction, and so we're working really hard as a staff to get to know our students and kind of make sure we make connections with them. And so that's the big focus for our entire district. And then at the high school, we're piloting a program called Habitudes, and that's also about coping skills and having goals for yourself, and also just talking about how we interact as human beings together and improving those types of relationships in the schools. And we're hopeful that it will really help a lot of our students that maybe that are troubled or don't feel like they belong, or they maybe have some issues with social interaction. Will help them the other students to engage them, and also help them to become part of the high school experience as well. What we see a little bit of is isolation and disengagement, and so we're trying to cultivate that within our student population, and hopefully it will help. So
Okay.
We're excited about it.
And with this training, I guess, then your teachers and your staff can maybe be more helpful in maybe identifying students or having difficulties or things along that line?
Hopefully so. The conversations are some interesting, like heavier conversations about state of mind, where you're at in the process. And we're doing it just once a month, and it's a prescribed program called Habitudes. And so I sent 2 trainer of trainers to a training in Virginia, and they came back and they're deploying this in our district. So they do a pre-planning lesson with all teachers at the high school, and then they go and they teach it during our mentoring block. We have a period of time each month that students go in there and they have conversations with teachers, and so everyone's doing it, even like the PE, all of the different teachers in the high school. So I'm hopeful that this will help with some of the social emotional concerns we have in our community, and helping the students realize that tomorrow needs you, and we need you to engage and be part of the process. So
Right.
that's just our main focus.
And I guess then if a teacher suspects that there might be a concern or an issue, then there are other programs or other things that can be done to help that student?
Yes, well, we have the Just Say Something program as
That's
well,
right.
so it can be anonymous, and that's really helped recently with some issues that we've had in the school. Like if you have a friend that's in trouble or contemplating harming themselves, you can contact that hotline, and they will get counseling service to that student. Also do a welfare check at home.
And that can be an anonymous report,
Yes, it
can
can be
it?
anonymous, and so we encourage our students to use that system, and teachers as well. Teachers can also contact the counselors and social workers in the school if they have a concern about a student, and go ahead and have conversations with them that way. So we're just trying to be a little more in tune to our students, and hoping the students will be more in tune to their population as well. We have to help each other. So
Right.
That's our goal.
And this, as you mentioned, is getting rolled out in your high school. So it
Yes.
would be both Bloomfield High School and Charlie White Brown?
Yes, both schools.
Okay, very good. The other thing you were talking with me about before we came on the air is that your district has been chosen to pilot a couple of programs for the state. One is a Circle Grant, and so talk to us a little bit about that.
Yes, the Circle Grant is a large grant that we applied for, and we're in our second year of implementation, and the state had several legislative decisions made, and one of them was to do dyslexic testing of all first graders. And so since we're part of that Circle Grant, we are a pilot district for that process. And basically, in the future, all districts will be required to test all first graders for dyslexia. So we're going to be the pilot district to do the first initial screening cycle We're going to a training October 2nd, and hopefully, we'll get more information about the tools that we're going to use to do that. But the first initial kind of informational training I went to was that every first grade teacher has to test every kid, so that's going to take time out of our instructional schedule. So I'm hoping to have some conversations about possibly doing a team of people instead of disrupting the whole learning process in first grade to do this pull-out assessment. Maybe we could have a team that could go do it instead. So I'm hoping that they're flexible with their directives.
Right. We'll see, right?
Yeah.
But time will tell.
Yeah.
But with this going out, I mean, I would assume if a child is identified as having a dyslexia at an earlier age, they can get more help in kind of helping to address some of these reading issues?
Right. It will guide us in what kinds of interventions we need to provide for that child. Hopefully, it will help also diagnose some areas of concern, or even help us to pursue more assessments with a diagnostician through our districts. So hopefully, it will identify those kids. A lot of times you'll have children in the system that there's something's missing. They seem okay, but however, they don't seem to perform real well in school. And those are called the DNQs, do not qualify. So, like, for example, we would refer them for testing, but their IQ is probably okay. And so
they're smart kids.
They're smart and they're capable, but just performance-wise, it doesn't happen. So in many cases, those are the type of children that do have some form of dyslexia, or also there's another terminology, and I can't think of it at this point, but for numbers, if they switch numbers around.
Right.
So there's things like that really inhibit their learning, and so hopefully we'll be more in tune to those type of students and help figure out ways to help them earlier on.
And like everything, it's not probably just black or white. Maybe there's some fine gradations of a dyslexia problem that then would cause maybe some issues for students, but not maybe major issues that would be readily noticeable by a teacher or
Right.
member of your staff.
Right. And so, my goal, we're all hopeful in our whole state that we'll start identifying those kids. My concern is we're going to over-identify. So we have to put some measures in place that we're not over-identifying kids that just maybe have a delayed process in learning how to read or decode or whatever. So it's a little tricky.
Right.
So we'll test it out, and we'll give them our feedback, and then let them know. Hopefully they'll make some adjustments at the state level to the full state deployment process, so we'll see.
Okay, very good. My guest this morning, Dr. Kim Mizell, is here. She is the Superintendent of Schools for the Bloomfield School District. There is another pilot grant that your district is a part of as well, and this is a multi-layer system of support, I guess, again, going back to helping to identify students who maybe need some extra help.
That's right. Our state is changing their process. We used to have a program called Response to Intervention, and now, well, it's not a program, it's a system process, and they're changing that process again to multi-layer support system, which hopefully will help us to kind of loosen up a little bit some of the parameters of looking at documentation collected to get a student tested for special ed or special education. And so what you have with that, sometimes that process takes too long, and so some of the concerns is we have failure to identify kids that need help.
Right.
And so this new system is more of more responsive as far as in the classroom, and with the teachers being a little more in tune to making adjustments and keeping track of what they're doing, and trying different ways of teaching for the different learning styles or whatever may cause them to think that this child is struggling. So it kind of gives teachers a little more freedom to move forward with what, from their professional perspective, what they need to do with some kids that they're concerned about in their classroom, instead of going through a formalized process. So we're also a pilot district for that. So
Okay.
we will be working on that as well this year. So.
And for parents who are listening and watching us this morning who maybe have a child that could benefit from this, does this mean maybe more help, more opportunities to maybe help these parents and for their children so they can get the education they deserve?
It does mean there's more help. We're going to be a little more responsive that way, and so we have a fairly good process in Bloomfield already, but as we know, we can always improve. And so we'll be looking very heavily and self-reflecting on what's actually, from the general theoretical process to what's actually being implemented in the schools sometimes can look very different. So in theory, it's a great idea, but once you start doing it and you have all the humans involved in the process, it can look something different than what you originally planned for. So right now what we're looking at is we're going through a rubric self-reflection process of our district system to see what we need to adjust and change in our procedures and policies for intervention for students.
I see. And then, of course, again, this is a pilot program
Yes.
here at Bloomfield, and so it'll be rolled out statewide, I guess, depending on how things go here.
Yes.
With your recommendations
Next year.
or
Next year.
or thoughts about it.
Yeah, we're not the only district. There's several districts throughout. There's 10 districts that have the Circle grant, and those are the districts that are deciding to pilot the program.
I see. Okay. And you were telling me, too, this morning that you had the opportunity to meet and visit for a short period with the new public education secretary, and give me your thoughts about him. And his name escapes me at the moment, so help me.
Dr. Stewart, Ryan
Thank
Stewart.
you. So what did you think?
Actually, I'm very hopeful. We had an opportunity to have a roundtable conversation with him, and we talked about 6 topics, which were adequate funding for like the raises and things that happened this last year. It didn't quite work out as what they thought.
So this legislature that said we want to give teachers a well-deserved raise, and here's a chunk of money, but the chunk of money didn't quite cover all of the employees that the legislature
correct.
wanted to give raises to, and so that left you districts holding the bag, so to speak.
Exactly. The districts had to use their savings accounts, is how I like to say it,
Right.
for the rainy day problems or things that come up like roofing and repairs. We are having to tap into those funds to give those raises this year. And so
Okay.
we had a good conversation around that, and then also talked about one of the strategies the state used is to put everything into a lump sum of the it's called the SEG, and that's the unit value. So they inflated the unit value, but in actuality, in Bloomfield, we actually did not receive more money because we had a declining enrollment, and our at-risk number was not adjusted as well as we thought. So it didn't work out as well as they thought. So
Aren't those humans? That's what happens, right? It's
Yeah.
those humans again. They get involved.
Well, and some of the suggestion was backward planning. Okay, you have an idea of what you're going to fund. Have us run it through our numbers. I mean, they can run it at the state, but somehow it never quite works out that way.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you give it to us and say, run it through your systems and your spreadsheets and see if this allocation would support your district appropriately. And so that was one suggestion that we gave, before they go and fight for the money at the legislative level, have a good number that they know everybody can live with.
Mm-hmm.
One of the superintendents said the unit value is still less than, it's like $235 less than it was, I want to say in 2006 is the number, but don't quote me on that. But so we're still
Before the Great Recession, I guess, is what they
before
use,
all
right?
the
Isn't that kind of the
reductions
idea,
and everything
right?
that happened? So we're still not there. And I know people get tired of hearing that, but it's really difficult to manage a district under these circumstances. So
Right.
it makes it hard to, you always feel like you're, and it's an old religious saying, but it's robbing Peter to pay Paul kind of thing. You're not going to buy the textbooks that you want because you don't have the money to do that because you used it for salary increases, or you can't use the money that way. But they did do that this year. They put everything into one fund. They didn't have light items designated for certain things. So if districts didn't plan ahead and put that money aside and pull it out before they utilized it for raises, it was consumed by the raises. So it was challenging this year. So
Right.
anyway, that
Good
was,
intentions from the
right,
legislature, of course, right?
And by all means, teachers need to give raise. They've earned those raises and they deserve them. And however, the challenge is, how do we do it in a way that it doesn't bankrupt the districts,
Right.
So that's the challenge.
And the secretary, I imagine, was fairly receptive, at least to your face, with
He
what
was.
you were asking.
He seemed to have a really good sense of, he'd only been in the position for 11 days.
Okay.
And I was impressed at how much he did understand. And he kind of had a sense of where our district was in certain processes and what needs to happen with systems. Like, for example, the state's technology system is archaic, and so we have a lot of issues with our STARS data, which is all the information that they need for everything, going into their system, which is archaic. And so he said we really have to upgrade our system at the state level to make the streamlining data collection more fluid. And so he understood that. His big focus this year will be K-5 plus extended learning. He wants to make sure that every high school student applies for FAFSA as a senior, so that
That's
they
the federal financial aid
Yes.
application,
Yeah.
right? Mhm.
And has an opportunity, if they so choose, to go to college. They also have the other governor's initiative is breakfast in the classroom, which Bloomfield does that, so we're good. And then the last one was extended learning time for districts, and they wanted to add an extra 10 days to our calendars for students and do different programs. It was last year, the problem was pretty much the end of the year timing, and we've already had gone through our boards and approved our calendars. And in our area, it's a beautiful time in the summer, and kids and community members really didn't want to have their kids go an extra 10 days.
Got it.
And so that's something that we're going to have to wrestle with, I guess, in our communities, because
They really want to do that at the state level.
Legislators want it, but it's not something that the people really want. So some people do.
Right.
In the hotter areas, you might as well do year-round school and have that schedule because of the heat.
Mhm.
Because kids aren't outside. But up here, they go fishing, they go camping, they go
Right.
they go to Farmington Lake and have fun.
There you go.
Enjoy
That's
their
true.
summers, and so.
We'll see what happens.
Yeah.
Okay, very good. And before we run out of time, but we're almost out of time, Dr. Mizell, Bloomfield Bobcat football team, how about them?
Right, we're undefeated right now.
Wow,
And
right.
So it's exciting. They're doing really well.
4-0, is that the record?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes,
Okay.
and they beat Hope Christian, which Hope Christian is usually very
They're a pretty competitive team, are they not?
Yes,
That's
and
right.
they were big, and our boys, they were they had such a great defensive game, and then the offense turned it up after the half.
Okay.
They got one touchdown the first half, and then after that they just basically was a defensive team that a lot of interceptions and things like that. Special teams really did a great job too, and so we won.
Very
It's
good.
exciting. It was going to be. We were all worried because it was our homecoming game, and Hope Christian usually is very difficult to beat. So,
Wow.
and they were bigger than us, but our boys were faster.
Nice.
So that's how I look at it.
You showed them.
Yeah,
there you
that's
go.
right.
Well, congratulations
Thank
to everyone
you.
on the team and at Bloomfield Schools, and thank you, of course, for coming in this morning.
Thank you.
Appreciate it very much. That's Dr. Kim Mizell, the superintendent of the Bloomfield School District, my guest here on KSJE. And I'll be back with more in just a moment, everybody. The time right now is 8:32.
Thank you.
Apple's new phones have more recycled parts than ever before.